Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Discourse in Magic. This was a blast of an episode to record. We got to go to our good friend Lee Asher's house. He made us an amazing dinner and we got a chance to go see his playing card collection of some amazing stuff that he's collected over the last couple years and some amazing history as we got an opportunity to chat with him about playing cards.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about the subculture of playing card collectors that exists today and the history of that and the history of playing cards and what they represent in American and North American culture, what the process is of going through making designer decks.
Yeah, and really making authentic cards. Actually, speaking of authenticity, you'll get an opportunity to see the authenticity that we actually went to his house because there's, dogs and squeaky chairs and all the fun things that we find in...
Probably the loudest mini fridge in existence.
Yeah, so we did the best we could to edit out some of those extra sounds, but do keep in mind that that's us. We're traveling around and getting an opportunity to speak to some people, and if we can't reach them in person, then we reach them online. So we've had a very exciting time traveling around, and this specifically is just an example of a really fun day for us where we got to go and take a look at all the amazing stuff that he's collected, and that kind of thing would not have been possible if he lived on the other side of the world. So we're very ecstatic that we spent a great day and evening with our friend Lee.
Had some killer food.
Killer food.
I turned 21. It was a great day.
Yeah, it was Tyler's birthday that day. So there was a lot of fun things going on that day for us. And I think it really came through. It's a very exciting conversation. So here it is, all about playing cards and what's happening right now in 2016 in the world of new, fresh playing cards, a little bit of history, and so much more with our friend Lee Asher. Here it is. Hello everybody and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a dear friend, Lee Asher.
Hello.
It's been a really awesome day. We actually came down here. We had a very nice dinner and then very delicious. And then we went upstairs and we got to see his gallery and his collection of playing cards. And it was really awesome. We actually just came down from looking at everything and sort of learning a little bit of the history, and now we have such beautiful stuff to make.
I wanted to get you excited, guys. And
you have. You pumped us right up. So one of the first questions that we ask everyone is how they started in Magic. I mean, we have a relationship with each other, which is Magic Camp. I think that's where we've all started together at Sorcerer Safari, and they've have a shout out in like every 50% of our episodes.
At least.
It's something crazy like that. So it really shows how much of a massive impact.
They honestly deserve one in 100% because we wouldn't be talking to the people that we didn't meet at Magic Camp if we didn't end up going to Magic Camp in the first place.
So the question is, how did you get started in Magic? And be sure to touch on Sorcerer Safari in your story of the journey.
Sure. Well, I didn't start Magic at Sorcerer Safari. It certainly is part of my journey. But my father is a magician. My father is a doctor by day, but sleight of hand artist by night. And he's a semi-professional, so on the weekends he'll take gigs. And so it's always been in my life. I've always had magic around me because he has been a magician since he was a kid. He was an Al Flosso student when he lived in New York. And and he used to hang out at Tannins. And so it's kind of like I'm a second-generation magician. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got into it. But at about age 13, age 14 is when I started to realize that I wanted to learn more about playing cards and get more into serious sleight of hand. And my father's more of an entertainer than a creator sleight of hand guy.
He does parlor and stage.
Yeah, more. He does close up. He certainly does close up and parlor. Not so much stage, but he's not. It's not intense sleight of hand. It's not. It's more.
It's in the performance.
It's more entertainment. Yeah. It's more patter heavy instead of technique heavy.
Right.
And I was looking for technique. I was looking for a change. Yeah, I was totally a move monkey. And it was a wonderful period of my life where I was seeking more, and that's when I started to read more books. And there was no DVDs at the time; it was actually VHS tapes. So I would watch VHS tapes. This was pre-internet, And it was a wonderful learning experience. And like I say, I was surrounded by magic because my father is also a collector, which we'll get into more because that plays a part of why I collect playing cards. My father collects magic books, he collects magic sets, he collects magic comics. He's actually the world's largest magic comic book collector.
Wow.
He saw the cover of Magic magazine a couple of years ago because of it. He was on the cover of the Linking Ring this month. I have an issue upstairs I can show you. But so there was always a collection in the house. There was always something around me. And like I say, that plays kind of into of why I collect playing cards. But we'll get into that later. So I hope that's answered your question of how I've gotten into magic.
And then how did you get into our lives?
Right.
Because you did it in more than one way. You came into, at least my life, as sort of this sort of mentor and coach at camp, but also just as a creator. Like, I bought the Asher Twist before I met you.
Cool.
Right? So
Thank you. I appreciate the support. Okay, so in 2000, I was living in Paris. Turn of the century, I was living in Paris, and I was on the internet, and I found something.
And that was a new thing at that time.
Yeah, it was
that was
newish.
really exciting.
It was newish. And
dial up.
I came across something called Sorcerer Safari Magic Camp. And as a kid, I went to camp. Not magic camp, but a camp, sleepaway camp. And so I thought, wow, magic and sleepaway camp? How cool is that? And so I wrote Mike Siegel, Magic Mike Siegel, who's the owner. And at the time, I spoke with a woman named Linda Gross, who is not part of camp anymore. But we still know her and love her dear. She's a wonderful lady, and her husband, Al Gross, maybe you know, who is a magician here in Toronto. So they were integral early on in camp, and so I spoke with them, and we kind of set up the logistics of me coming over from Paris to Canada, and I showed up, and it was such an amazing experience that I have come back now every summer for this will be 17 consecutive summers.
Wow.
And I don't miss it for the world, and so that's how I think I've come into your lives that way. But I appreciate, like I said, the support of the Asher Twist, which is now on download. And I'm sure you got it as a DVD, and before it was a VHS, and it's kind of gone through the ranks. And it'll go to whatever the next format will be. So that's how I think I've come, like I say, into your lives. And I love it. I love everything about it. And now that I live here in Toronto, now not only do I see you maybe in the summertime, I get to see you all throughout the year, which is super cool.
Yeah. And I'm also back in the city now, which is exciting. And just like you said, you wouldn't miss it for the world. I just wiggled around my summer tour to make sure that I was able to get the camp because, obviously, it's like the same. It's the same thing for us. It's
devastated.
I was devastated.
It's a rough 2 days.
And then I solved it all. So let's dive right into the topic of playing cards, and I think that a good place to start is sort of, what's happening right now. I think in the last couple of years we've seen this huge explosion where, every magician doesn't have a set of bikes anymore, number one, and number two, Kickstarter, which only started existing in the last couple of years, has now become this hub for playing cards to...
They have their own tab, right?
Exactly. For playing cards to be made. Can you shed a little bit of light on the current stage of...
There's a lot there. So let's unravel it started, this explosion that you're talking about, it started in 2004 with The Illusionist. They put out the Black Tiger deck. And that was kind of it, like no one knew.
Yeah,
no one knew.
And that is a name that,
it's amazing. I didn't
rings
actually
a bell.
know that Black Tiger was started because I remember, 2004 is right when I started getting into magic. I started when I was 12, so just a little bit later. And that Black Tiger deck was this elusive thing where I was just this is the coolest deck. I want it so badly, but I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's weird because it's a bicycle deck. It's a rider back deck. We all know.
And how different is the feel at all?
I think the first deck wasn't that it was different. It was that inverse color, right? Instead of red or blue, it was just black on white now, and that changed everything. It really did. And I don't think that Brad Christian, the guy who owns Illusionist, I don't think he really knew at the time. I don't think anyone knew. Right. Yeah. But as soon as he sold out of those very quickly, he knew. Right. And that, like I say, that changed a lot of things. And then Kickstarter came along. And like you said, Kickstarter's not that old. It's only a few years
it's
old.
really
and in the
fresh.
first year or two, there weren't that many playing card projects. You know, in the first year there was only a handful, and then the second year it grew, and then the third year, you know, and it kind of multiplied
And
out.
how many projects do you see this year? Ballpark.
You know, they used to offer stats, and they stopped doing that this last year. So as of last year, I don't know about this year, but as of last year, there was over 600 or 700 projects that had happened on Kickstarter.
That is
and over half of them get funded.
bonkers.
You know, again,
That
these
is
were stats that were
bonkers.
valid last year, and
But
I don't
it's got to
know
be
what
either the
happened.
same or bigger.
Yeah, you have to assume not much
Yeah.
has changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's right. It's pretty amazing, and it's recent. So that's not, like I say, what started it. It's fueling it.
So
and yeah, go
so has the growth into these specific and it's called designer decks was that growth started by illusionists? Because I remember that you were saying that, I mean, most of or the market of the purchasers of these decks isn't all magicians. Actually, magicians
Right.
aren't even the primary market. So was illusionist the person that kicked off this designer thing, or were they the person who kicked it off towards magicians?
You know, you could design a deck much earlier than 2004. So I don't want you to think that it started there. That's where the explosion started. You know, that's where the chaos happened. There are many decks throughout history that have been customized. Not to the point they are today, but there are many decks. There are many companies that have printed their own deck of cards. Many alcohol companies. You know, there's a whole section of collecting called advertising decks. So those kind of fall into those customized, you know, hyper customized decks. But again, in 2004, when the Black Tiger deck came out, it sent shockwaves not only through the Magic world, but through the regular world as well, because Brad Christian was marketing also to the regular world, not just magicians. And so you're seeing it, like we talked about, you see decks on thefancy.com or on these websites that are not Magic related, but sell cool things.
And they're definitely not pitching to a magician.
No.
You know, they're-
And so you see illusionists getting these decks into GQ, you know, into style magazines. And that's really where it took off. And so that's why I'm saying it starts there for the explosion in the modern world. I told you earlier upstairs that the American playing card world, the collecting playing card world, is broken into three categories: the antique, the vintage, and the modern. Like pre-1930s is antique. Anywhere from like 1930s to the mid-80s, and again, I'll email you the exact dates, but anywhere in the middle, that's vintage. And then from, like I say, 80 or 95 maybe until now is modern. And you can find examples, like I say, of hyper customized decks throughout all of these categories.
Right.
But like I say, the explosion happened. That modern started happening really in 2004 with Brad, and putting it in these non-Magic related, magazines and websites and
How do you
distribution.
see it moving forward? Do you see it as something that's only growing? And
Sure.
And what effect? Just trying to relate it back to the Magic community, even though this is a talk about outside that, but what effect do you think it is going to be having on the Magic community when magicians are putting out their own designer decks and
Awesome
stuff
question.
like that?
Awesome question. And I think we're in a golden age of playing cards right now, because with the aid of Kickstarter, see what's happening on Kickstarter is you have innovation, right? You have these artists that have very little to lose and everything to innovate, right? That's what it's about. Like, how do I make my deck better than the next guy? How do I fund this more? Because some guys, they just, it's about me and my tastes. And others are about how do I really make the most beautiful, ostentatious deck I could possibly make. And so they're pushing the envelope. They're constantly pushing, innovating. Meanwhile, the manufacturers are watching and they're playing along, and because it's business, right? So I want to help you make the most ostentatious tuck box possible. You design it, we'll make it. We'll figure it out. You get there. And so it's this real nice symbiotic relationship.
And
that's
also
happening.
now you have this, it pushes the development forward, because if there's only one company or two companies, the needs don't come through that often of people. But when it, breaks down into finer and finer companies,
it's getting back to, it's about innovation, right? We're in a beautiful time where there's a lot of innovation, and the manufacturers are playing along and helping to innovate. And so as magicians, we're benefiting from that. Our tools are getting better, right? Like we're the quote unquote we're the modern builders. Well, our hammer has just improved, right? Like everything is, and not just in the design, right? Sure, people are doing a lot of art design, but it's also like the materials, the raw materials are getting better. The manufacturing process is getting better. Quality control is getting better.
And do you think that this is all getting better in terms of just the design of the aesthetic of the card, or do you think that
everything?
The
Everything.
functionality.
Everything.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Not just the design is what I was saying. Like they're coming up with better ways to make the tuck box and the cards fit better, and better way, like just everything's
like
better.
I'm sitting here with some very new. This is new, right?
Yeah, well, that was last year.
Okay, yeah. So some very new cards in some beautiful boxes, and I mean, to me, it reflects like something that exactly like you said, like somebody who felt very high class. You know what I mean about these cards? Maybe they wanted a deck of cards for their gambling room, a deck of cards for their something maybe like a gentleman's club, like with a cigar, you know, like it makes me think of a gentleman thinking about style. I don't know, like that's sort of what I'm getting out of, and I don't know how far off I could be about who the audience, like, is it just anybody at home saying like, oh, pretty cards, or is it?
Sure, I don't know if that's the target. Anyone sitting at home who's thinking,
But I mean, like
cards.
fancy, like that's an app which is very much for like people who search for products on apps on their phone. So definitely definitely that market is like really, really small, and it's definitely focused around the youth. And I'm thinking like, who's buying playing cards off that thing now? Obviously they're showing up, or on some other like apps that I have that do just that, because I land directly in the market. But I mean, who could be? You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm sort of struggling to put it together.
Well, there's a couple. There's a couple, right? There are the magicians, there are the cardists, the flourishers, and there's the playing card collectors. And then there are these other markets, like the designers of these playing cards, for instance, right? These guys who are graphic designers, they have their own fan base. Well, they're bringing that fan base to Kickstarter. And so they're only printing, let's say, 5,000 decks. Well, there's already 5,000 magicians, cardists, and playing card collectors, right? And now you add in the 10,000 fans that the artist has, and there's more, demand than there is supply.
And they sort of now built themselves like a little economy.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And then you add in the innovation, because this guy not only has created a beautiful design, but he's asked, United States Playing Card Company for experimental paper, and they're doing this. And now you have something really interesting, right? It's this living, breathing project that's not just a deck of cards anymore. It's an economy, it's innovation. It's a lot of really interesting things.
How do you feel about limited runs? And like, what do you think do you think that like it makes sense for people to want to be pushing and be like, this is it, I'm only going to make these cards once?
Well,
or
I
do you think that is just a ploy to sort of raise the value of their...
Well, it all depends on why they're doing that, right? Is it... Like, I know a guy who made a very limited run of a deck of cards because the deck was dedicated to his mother, because his mother passed away from cancer. And it was a very specific deck for a very specific meaning. And so, I don't think that was a business ploy. You know what I mean?
But many of them are. I mean, many of them are for this, not a business ploy to say, but I mean, when you get an understanding of the full economy of these cards, you can understand where you can price your own product and your supply and demand, I mean, so...
Again, I think it's case specific, right? I don't know, how many super high-end Ferraris do they make a year? Is that a business ploy?
Yeah.
Or is that because they're just trying to make a very high-end thing, very specific for a very specific market?
Right.
So, that case can be made in playing cards as well.
Yeah.
So, it's case specific, I guess. Is
what makes a deck high-end to you? What you personally?
Me personally?
I know that it's got to be a subjective thing.
I'm not an art collector, so for me, design is not the high priority. It's the texture, it's the feel, how it operates, its functionality. So for me, a deck that's going to last the way that I want it to feel for a very long time is what I look for. That's what will differentiate a high quality deck from a non-high quality deck.
Which is what you went for with your deck.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I was very specific about what I want. The 605s weren't for anyone else but me. I appreciate that everyone else likes them, but they weren't for everyone. They were for me. Mm-hmm. Because I wanted to have a deck that did exactly what I wanted and felt the way that I wanted it.
How do they vary from regular Fourniers? Because I've never actually had the Spanish version.
Fournier has different kinds of cards within their brand, so they're very similar to the 505s in the design. Mm-hmm. They're different. They are different, but they feel different as well because I've asked for different stock, a thicker stock than the normal, and they went through a different quality specifications. So, They're thicker. They're more robust than a regular deck of bicycles. They're gonna feel thicker and harder to control because they're European paper. They're varnished, not finished.
Right.
There's a couple of things. They're baked. So there's things in the process that make them more rigid. And I personally prefer that. Where other people, they prefer a very thin card, very flexible card.
What was the experience like to? I mean, you went down to the factory and you
I wish I did. That would have been awesome.
Oh, okay.
That would have been so
cool.
cool.
What was the experience like? I mean, designing it. I mean, like, you sort of are one of the people that, really had to push through the grit to make and design and figure out what's going on with the card. Exactly. Before now, someone can. It was have the whole thing funded before.
Yep. It was way different. And it's not that long ago either, which is kind of funny. You know what? Again, this is what I wanted. It was about me. So it wasn't so much, hey, if I don't sell them, if this doesn't work out business-wise, that's cool. I love playing cards. I'm going to be around for a lot long.
I'll probably use them all.
I'm going to use them all. This isn't,
How many did you make?
I printed 5,000 and then another 5,000. So 10,000.
Yeah, so listen, printing 5,000 saying like this is basically for myself, but it's also going on sale is like,
Yeah, look,
I'll probably use them all.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, and I love playing cards. Mm-hmm. I love playing cards. So, it was a risk, but not too much of a risk in that sense because I will always use playing cards. And
So we spoke a bit about how, pricing cards builds a little bit of an economy. But also, I mean, you're the head of a playing cards collectors association. So collecting playing cards as well as being interesting for the sake of collector's sake, but I mean, not only is in general, the practice of collecting something that's sort of like, I mean, it's personal, but also like something that's very old is worth a lot of money, or something that's very specific is worth a lot of money. Is there like a sort of like a stock market of playing cards, like an economy? I mean, people buy lots of things. And
Sure. In the same way that there is with Beanie Babies, or in the same way there is with baseball cards,
G.I. Joes,
Barbies, anything collectible. It's an unregulated market, right? There is no bank that I can take my playing cards to and cash them in for money. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And that, not yet, maybe next year, you never know. But right now, no. So it's unregulated in that sense. But sure, can you buy a deck of cards for X amount of dollars and then resell it for more than that? Absolutely. That's speculation. Does that happen? Yeah. Just like it does in Beanie Babies, just like it does in playing or baseball cards or basketball cards, or Barbies or G.I. Joes. But a lot of people in the Playing Card Collectors Association that I'm in, they're not speculators, right? They're not there for the money per se. It's more about the hunt, right? Like my dad, for instance, is a wonderful example. He doesn't collect Magic comics for their value, right? He's not like, oh, I got this.
And $10,000 collectors don't.
No, it's about the hunt. It's about, I want to go, I'm looking for this. I'm digging through hundreds of comics at some flea market, and then boom, I find it, right? It's that hunt. It's treasure hunt. And so that's what really drives a lot of the collectors in the playing card association.
What drives you most?
The hunt.
Yeah?
Sure,
okay.
The hunt.
But do you treat as an economy? Like, do you buy, do you invest in these cards because you think they'll be valuable?
It helps to keep the collection growing, right? Like if I buy some cards and then they grow in value and then I sell them, then I can buy more cards. So, like it helps to propagate the collection. But I don't consider myself a true speculator in that sense.
Okay.
Because I have plenty of cards upstairs that I wouldn't sell.
Right.
Because
you just love them so
It just
much.
took me too long to find. Maybe one day, but right now I'm like, no, man, I just found that. You know how hard that was to find?
Yeah. What am I going to
So
get rid
that
of?
that right there, I think, pushes me over the back behind the line of speculation. Whereas I know guys who would sell that in a heartbeat. That they have no.
If they found the buyer.
Yeah, they don't. They have no sentimental value towards it. They don't care that they spent 5 years finding it. If it's the right price, they will sell it. And okay, look, I might have a buy. Like I might sell out at a certain price. If you add 8 or 9 zeros and maybe, but it took me like 8 years to find that deck, so I'm not selling it right now.
This is I'm about to bring up a topic that I'm very curious about, and which is the idea, and I'd love to know a little bit about the history, if you know about it, is the growth of gaffs. I mean, I know that Bicycle used to help out magicians, which, off the record, speaking as a non-magician, I think that that's crazy that Bicycle would allow that to even happen. Speaking as a magician, of course I'm thankful. Now I know that that's not the case, but I also know, I mean, unless I'm wrong, but I have a feeling you can still get gaffs. Or maybe you can only get gaffs of some sorts, and it's running thin.
When you ask me the history of gaffs, I don't know that each gaff probably has its own history.
Us being allowed.
Yeah, so... Okay, so my understanding of United States Playing Card Company and printing gaffs is that they have stopped in recent years because they have to protect their trademark. And so they don't make gaffs that are made from the Joker, the back design, the tuck box, or the Ace of Spades. These are the things that they've trademarked. So we've seen gaffs with Ace of Spades. We've seen gaffs with the Joker. We've seen gaffs with the tuck box. But they don't do that anymore, again, because they have to protect their trademark. And I think that countries like China were taking advantage and printing things they shouldn't be printing. And so, will they continue to print gaffs? Yes, as long as they don't infringe on their trademark. And, yeah.
So why would somebody make, So you're saying that they would make like a gaff Jack of Hearts, for example?
Sure, because that's not trademarked. The Jack of Hearts in their deck, it's an American standard is what it's called. So you can take that Jack of Hearts and do anything you want with it because it's copy free, right? There's no trademark on it. It's not copywritten per se.
Even the specific Bicycle design of the Jack of Hearts.
Well, it's not Bicycle's design of the Jack of Hearts.
Yeah, but the one that is used on the Bicycle cards. Okay.
Nope, that's not theirs. It's an American standard.
Right.
Now, there are companies that have very specific faces that are owned by, let's say, United States Playing Card Company that you can't use. But that very standard Jack of Hearts that we all know and love, you can absolutely do anything you want with that.
Wow.
Because that's not theirs. They don't trademark that. And they're very clear about that. Like if you look on the lip of a bicycle box, well, it used to be on the lip of a bicycle box, it'll tell you that they're here. It says it right here, actually. This just says all rights reserved, but it will say that the Ace of Spades.
Ace of Spades. Yeah, no, maybe it says on the Ace or maybe on the Joker or something. But
it'll tell you very specifically what is
trademarked
trademarked and what isn't. And the Jack of Hearts is not mentioned in there, so it's not trademarked, and you can make a gaff with the Jacks. Will they print it? That's another story. It's up to them and their discretion. It's their company. They can do it's their party. They'll cry if they want to. So,
how do you feel about designer decks designing gaffs for their own brand? Do you feel like that almost hurts Magic being done? I sort of have this feeling where it's like I'm bringing in a weird unknown deck of cards and then having an even weirder unknown card in the mix in order to use it.
You know what? If you don't know that it's a gaff, if you don't know how to use it,
I think
it depends on the design.
It's laying dormant until you know, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it too much. I understand what you're saying, and it has that. Is it plausible that they could figure that out? Sure, but real small. I think it's real small.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what the 52 Plus Jokers organization is. I actually only heard about it a couple weeks ago, and then a little bit more today when you showed me some of these very beautiful decks of cards. So
it's a cool organization. It's the American Playing Card Collectors Association. So if you're really into collecting cards, then you should join the club. And it's just, it's basically a community that helps to support the love of playing cards. We put out a digital magazine every month that talks about everything from the antique, the vintage, and the modern. We also put out a printed quarterly, and we have the world's largest playing card forum with thousands of members around the world that talk about all the new releases or talk about how to keep your collection in the best state possible, how to grade your playing cards. Yeah, and like I say, it's just this organization that helps to, to propagate the love of playing card collecting.
And what kind of, other than giving out information and content like that, what other like events and stuff do you guys all do? You have meetings?
Yeah. So there is an annual convention every year. Last year it was held in Orlando. This year it'll be held in Chicago. When I first joined the club, I'm glad you asked this question, I first joined the club in 2009 when they had their annual convention here in Toronto.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was surfing the net, and I came across a playing card convention, and I'm like, what is this? And I did a little more research and thought, okay, yeah, I think I need to go to a playing card convention, especially one that's downtown, right? I can. It was.
What I mean, I'm familiar with what a Magic convention is. Mm-hmm. What goes on? What is there? Mind my naivety, but what is there to do for a day or multiple days at a playing card convention?
It's similar to a Magic convention in that there's a dealer's room and there's lectures that teach you about things and there's celebrities that walk around and you meet the artists who create the decks.
That's cool though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like Comic-Con on a small scale.
Right, like a TCAF almost. The Toronto Comic Card Festival.
Yeah, decks are launched at the convention. It's pretty cool, And like I said, I saw this online, and I paid my money and showed up, and it was a very small, and it still is a very.
How many people together?
In 2009, it was probably about 150 people.
Still massive.
It was a combined convention with the International Playing Card Society. So we had the two major organizations kind of coming together. Like I happened to just luck into like the sweetest year.
Did you like snag any gems that you remember from 2009?
Yeah.
Your intro to the
sport? I'll tell you a great story about that. So I sent my money in about 3 weeks prior to the convention. And I sent my money to the International Playing Card Society. Mm-hmm. But because I'm in Canada, I'm considered North America, I'm supposed to be in the American Playing Card Society. So they sent my money over to the American side, and a guy named Tom Dawson, I don't know if that name rings a bell.
It does.
He wrote the American Playing Card Collectors, he wrote the Hawkman Encyclopedia of Collecting American Playing Cards with his wife Judy Dawson. And so they sent the money over to him, and then he called me, right? Like I get a phone call with the caller ID says Thomas Dawson. And I already own the book, so I'm kind of like, oh, this is neat. Hello? And he was super cool. He was like, hey, your address shows Toronto, Canada. You collect playing cards? Yes, I do. He goes, well, I do too. You have to come over and see the collection. And he was just super friendly. Like he was this wonderful playing card ambassador. And I went over there that weekend. I had to go because I thought it was kind of be like a, one of a kind opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
And he and his wife couldn't be more friendly. And they were telling me about playing cards and showing me playing cards like you saw tonight. Mm-hmm. Like that's what I saw. And and that's when I realized I had no idea about playing cards. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And so this is what was really cool was they were in their 60s or 70s at the time, And the club kind of skews older. There are plenty of young people in the club, don't get me wrong. But the average age kind of skews a little older, as do most clubs now. Mm-hmm. And so Judy asked me if there was any way that, are there any other young guys that are into collecting playing cards? And they had not realized about the modern explosion yet. And so I said to them, well, yeah, there's thousands of guys around the world who love playing cards. And they refused to believe me. They're like, no.
So what you get to pull up.
So here I am, like I'm a liaison basically between the two worlds now.
That's amazing.
So I say to them, well, the convention is next week. Let's go. I'm going to go. Can I have some day passes for the Saturday? And I'll bring a couple of young guys with me. So they said, sure, 10. Can you bring 10? Okay, yeah.
No problem.
So I called guys from camp. I called 2 local magic shops at the time because Morrissey's was open at the time. Mm-hmm. And I said, just give me a list of a couple of guys who are under the age of 20 who love playing cards. And I showed up to the convention on a Saturday with 10 guys under the age of 20 who loved playing cards. And that's when this world collided. That's when they realized, okay, wait a minute. There's an entire world we don't know about. And that's when they voted me directly onto the executive board. I was head of publicity. and I didn't expect that. That's not what I just showed up because there was a playing card convention.
Yeah, that was exciting enough.
But I realized I was the liaison. And so I've taken that role very seriously for the last 5 or 6 years now. And now I'm president. And I took over presidency in a very sad way. Tom Dawson, who was the president for many years, he passed away last month. And that breaks my heart. And for this last month, I didn't even want to look at playing cards. And I still kind of don't. I'm kind of like, And he's...
Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I'll talk about playing cards any day of the week. But and this is what he would have done too, right? He was really one of the most amazing playing card ambassadors there could ever be. And I can never fill his shoes. All I can do is honor his vision and kind of help move things forward. But it's an awesome club. It's way different than a Magic club per se because, Magic, there are secrets. So at a Magic convention, you're going to have to know someone or, trade something really amazing.
Until the end of the night.
Or wait. Even it happens behind closed doors, basically.
Yeah.
Where all the good stuff happens. But at a playing card convention, the best stuff is shown first. You don't have to wait till the end. Like the end is actually the weak stuff because we've already seen the good stuff. So it's kind of opposite in that regard. And I love that. I love being able to, not be in the Magic world for a few minutes and go into the playing card world and have all of these people
just
the
cards for the cards.
Yeah, just sharing all this knowledge and information. There are no secrets. There is nothing. There's no hierarchy of secrets, and it's great. Right. It's really wonderful.
So, what do you think of being, I guess, literally standing with one leg in the new generation of it and one leg in the old generation? What do you think of? We spoke about where it's going, but what do you think of cardistry and the combination of cardistry and playing cards? Because cardistry is very the word visual doesn't do it justice when trying to contrast it to Magic, because I almost want to say that it's not cerebral, it's not something that people think about. It's like dance,
It's not the same element,
exactly
but how do you do that when you watch someone break dancing or finger tutting or whatever?
It's an expression of oneself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that dance, you end up having more opportunities to express yourself with, the design of what you're wearing and maybe music and things like that. And I think that with
playing cards have that same form of expression.
Now it's becoming the tools of someone's trade even more so in cardistry.
Again, the word designer comes up the same way in fashion, right?
Yeah.
It's almost a sense of fashion.
Yeah. They're all interchangeable.
Yeah, so do you think that do you think maybe one of either cardistry or the big movement of playing cards wouldn't exist so much without the other? Do you think that they're sort of just some really nice worlds that are colliding?
I think there's more. I think they're colliding more than they are growing out
feeding
of
off each other.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of mutual benefit relationship in their growth together?
Sure. Again, playing cards. The world of playing cards are being innovated right now. That our tools are getting better. So that means that the cardists or the flourishers will have better tools. They'll be able to do, the cards will be able to slide better. So that means they'll be able to do things where there's less friction in some of their moves.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yes, the answer is yes.
And now are the flourishers, I already know the answer is yes, but are the flourishers getting in on the ground level of deciding what's happening with these cards? I guess maybe it's not.
Yeah, yes and no. I'm sure there are plenty of graphic designers on Kickstarter that would love to see some of these amazing flourishers and cardists doing amazing stuff with their playing cards. So,
but the people that are on Kickstarter selling their playing cards, they're not the cardists themselves.
No. Sometimes, you've got Zach Mueller, for instance, who's got his Fontaines on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. But no, I think he's a minority. I think there are more graphic artists than cardists. Mm-hmm. But again, I think that you'll get a graphic designer who will see Zach Mueller doing something amazing and want him to play with their deck.
Yeah.
And so you're starting to see that happen. You're starting to see, you know, maybe like the Verts put out a deck of cards that was specifically for flourishing, and Devo's got his Cardistry Heroes decks, and
beautiful.
you know, and so they're beautiful in a geometric fashion when performed
and
with.
in motion.
Yes, and so
which is really,
we're
I think,
seeing
forward
that.
thinking for
And that's innovation.
purpose. Yeah.
And I think that you'll see that more, right? We'll see that more.
These new neon, like glowing puck things, they're not decks of cards. They're just like, you have like 6 or 7 of them in a pile, and they're like color changing clear lights that are
Cool.
You know, it's totally abandoned the idea of playing cards and just been look at what I can do with my hands. That's also very pretty, and you know, fancy.
Right. Well, it's dance, right? It's about expression of oneself. It doesn't have to be cards. It could be pens. It could be cups. It's like cup stacking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think this is not that cup stacking is totally dead, but it's pretty dead. So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I still see Rubik's Cube videos pop up on my Facebook feed. Also, I do Cube, so that might be...
Well, that's a great example, though. Like, Cube was dead for a long time.
Yeah.
And now it's back, like, it's on fire.
Like, in 2 years, am I going to see people doing neon flourishing at raves? Like, is that how that goes? I mean, D-lights are at raves now, right?
Yeah. So what do you think? I know that he's asking a lot of things that... I mean, none of us can tell the future. But now that we've seen almost this exponential jump in the last couple of years because of the whole Kickstarter movement, and even just like as magicians speaking to magician friends, like I know a handful of people who are working on getting their own decks, you know, so where do you think the future's going of this sort of thing? Do you think this Kickstarter thing is going to plateau where it is, or maybe it's going to explode even deeper into something like
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm an optimist, so I think things are always going to get better. I think that we're going to continue to see innovation. Will there be a pop in a bubble? Maybe. A long time from now. You know, we're not the baseball.
Right now we get to ride the
wave. We're in the golden age right now. We're seeing some really cool things, and you know, where does the future take us? I don't know. But I do know that it's going to be a fun ride. And I think that in the end, it'll be great for us as magicians, as people who use these as our tools. Yeah. You know, it's only going to get better for us.
So, jumping backwards and sort of going into why you collect is something you mentioned upstairs, is the history of playing cards, not so much in just of their own specific history, but how they reflect human history and the time they existed. So I don't know if you want to touch on that and sort of the value of
magic, right? Magic is all about relating to people, right? Like the most powerful magic we can do for someone is something that relates to someone's life. They're like, wow, when I was a kid, that was my favorite card, or something, you know, that relates to them. So what I was telling you earlier upstairs is most every event in the history of the world has been documented on the back of a playing card. So whatever you can come up with, whatever pattern line you can think of, there will be a deck of cards that will relate to that. We would have, like, the decks we have here are classy. You mentioned that earlier. These are very classy. But there are decks, not that this isn't classy, but there are goth decks, for instance, right? And so one of the things I was talking about with Aaron Fisher a while ago was, let's say you're doing like a very serious piece of mentalism or almost bizarre magic.
You want the deck to reflect that?
Well, that's right. Would you want a red or a blue bicycle deck?
No.
Or would you want this very goth,
for sure,
dark black, beautiful deck of cards? And the answer is obvious.
Yeah,
and so that's why I think it's wonderful for us as magicians right now, is that whatever your performing style is, whatever it is, you can match a deck to it.
You can tailor your aesthetic to the performance you're trying to do.
And this is, I mean, one of the highlights of why it's the golden age is like, I mean, so I guess I'm growing to understand that my assumptions earlier were wrong. That, I mean, back in the day, there was still a relatively wide variety. But
there was a huge variety.
You needed to, like, care. I mean, now the variety's out there and people can jump in at a place that relates to them.
Right. You if you like collecting, you know, the specific artist, well, then that's an easy way to collect. You like collecting a specific kind of company that, like, I only
just
like
using, you know, like not just collecting. I mean, a lot of magicians use bikes. You know, bicycle cards are a very like standard, and a lot of magicians use the argument. I know I personally use bikes, and they use the argument that like, I mean, people maybe don't think that they're gaffes, or maybe people relate to them. And I mean, I agree that people relate to them. A lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, like my grandmother has those cards," and that's such a funny sentence.
Everyone does.
Exactly, to start with, but it already builds a relationship based on, you know, my grandfather had those cards or whatever, or I've seen those cards. Now we get to build a relationship based on something that we want. You know what I mean? We can maybe direct the relationship between us and the cards and the spectator, instead of, you know, them coming in and telling us why they remember what a deck of bikes is, and we can use it to direct our performance.
Sure. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, to each his own. But I don't necessarily agree with the concept of, well, I only use bikes because that's what the layman will recognize, and anything else is trickery. It'll make them think of gaffes. And I would have agreed pre-2004. But after 2004, not only did the custom playing card world explode, but you have to look at, let's say, what U.S. Playing Card Company did after post-2004. They started putting out a larger amount of their line. So you started to see, instead of one or two different decks at Walmart, now you're seeing
different colors,
3 dozen decks, right? This Tragic series and the Purple series and this. And now there's so many different cards that are sold through mainstream distribution that it's tough to make the argument that people only know red and blue bikes.
And I agree. And I don't think that currently is divided. I think there was a poll. I mean, it rings a bell that I read a poll that said that there was no... I mean, I think they asked people about if they thought about gas. I don't remember what the position was.
But is it plausible? Yes. Again, is that happening? Probably not. And you know, it all ends the moment you hand that deck of cards to that person and let them play with it.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, I've been asked when I'm using a non-bicycle deck, like, oh, what cards are those? And they're genuinely interested in what I'm showing them. And also, going back to the idea of multiple cards being available in big outlet stores, the internet is throwing cards in people's faces like crazy. I was out with a friend, and we went to her friend's house. I met a person I've never met before, and he has no connection to Magic, and he had a Bros Mine deck just out. And I was like, that's a hard deck to get your hands on. Like, I mean, it's not impossible, but I was like, how did you find that? And he said, stumble upon. Like, I was just clicking through, and it showed up, and I thought it was cool, so I grabbed one.
Yeah. And that's how a lot of people get into it. There's so many doors that open up to the world of playing cards and Magic and music, or anything for that matter. It's just wherever you want to start. You know, you want to collect art. You think it's cool. You like the color. I like the you know, all the silver on it. I like the foiling. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna say that. One of the things that we do around the end of the episode is we like to talk about maybe some of the things that we either got from this conversation, or just maybe an idea from this to move forward. So for me, first of all, I'm really moved by, first of all, looking at the collection, and also, I mean, just getting an opportunity to feel different decks of cards. My experience with different decks has been very limited in terms of, I mean, I never really found the appeal in it, aside from a couple of different blips in my jumps from bicycle, one of which was a Nox recently, which I think are very nice and simple. And then one earlier was with your Fourniers, and I love the way that they felt, and I love the way that they lasted really long. And so for me, I'm just, after this conversation, I'm very interested in participating in the movement of having new decks, because it's kind of like voting for a new president, where you kind of want your voice to be heard, even if it's one of many. So I'm sort of moved by this to go participate more than I currently am, and experiment with using different stuff with this sort of high quality and high class look to it and feel, because it's the tools of my trade.
Yeah. You should go to like the local Magic shop, like Browser's Den, and he's got a whole selection of cards. And anyone that's listening, they should go buy a couple of different kinds of brands of decks. You know, you can stick with United States Playing Card Company. They have a whole different, bunch of brands they sell. But you want to try to get different kinds of decks and then play with them and feel them and see which ones you like and see
Could
which
you
ones you
give,
naturally.
I mean, this might be a hard question, but like a basic five or a couple three that are very different from each other.
Well, okay, so you can go to Walmart and you could probably buy you can buy a rider back bicycle deck. Go buy some of those. Go buy. Let's just see who else. I haven't been to Walmart in a while, but let me think what would be there. Probably a deck of Mavericks. Those are thin and papery feeling, so check those out. You know, it's up to you if you like them or not. I personally not a fan, but to each his own. Get them Kickstarter if you want. Kickstart a couple of decks. Try to find, let's say, like Expert Playing Card Company is a wonderful company right now that's putting out some beautiful cards, like you mentioned, the Knox. House of Playing Cards. They haven't put out anything recently, but you can still find their stuff. I think a lot of the stuff that House of Cards printed early on was with the United States Playing Card Company. So what I'm saying is to just try to find different brands.
Just spread around.
And so that you can feel different qualities. And see what you like. You know, you might like a very thin playing card, a tally-ho deck. You know, people like tally-hos. They're very thin. You know, or a stud deck if you can find them. Very thin. Or you like very thick, robust cards. Like I personally love a thick card. So, you know, go buy a European deck of cards. And try them out and feel them and play with them. And ignore the color. Ignore the design. You know, because we'll get to that. You know, that's certainly important. That is part of it, but that's not the part of its functionality. You know, and how it works.
I think that really helps expose your sort of insider feel on this, which is like, you know, the basis is
and that relates to this
functionality.
podcast a lot more, right? Because like this is in the end of the day about magic, and the way we grow the magic community, or like the impact that cards are having on the magic community, is by getting the ones that are best for performance.
That's right. That's right. Or if you're a cardist, the ones that slide the most, or possibly even stick together the best. Depending on what you do. So what it really comes down to is, you know, like I said earlier on, we're modern builders and we're using these tools. So, okay, well, what are we building? Are we building a house today? What are we building? Because then I will take whatever tool I need to build whatever.
Right.
So that's what's awesome about the playing card world right now, is that we have all of these selections of tools to choose from, to play with. And it's awesome. It's awesome.
Tyler, do you have any final thoughts from this?
I have some final thoughts and actually a couple last quick questions.
Sure.
I'll start with the questions before I get to my thoughts. For someone who loves playing cards, or maybe Magic, but wants to learn more, not about the modern side, because I find that like there's so much information in the public eye, at least in the Magic community's eye, where it's just like the new. So for someone like yourself who loves the history, what is a good starting ground for someone who's like, I want to get into the classic collecting and playing?
Good question. Okay, there's a couple of places you can start, but the easiest, cheapest way to start is to go to the Playing Card Forum, right? PlayingCardForum.com. It's owned by the 52 Plus Joker. It is the world's largest playing card forum, free to join. And there's all these different threads that you can learn about, and it's broken down into category. So here's the modern discussion. Here's the vintage discussion. Here's the antique discussion. So if you want to learn about Jazaniah Ford, who was a very early American playing card manufacturer, like in the 1870s, that's where you'll learn about it. And then from there, you'll start to see other resources. Like a lot of it will lead you to a book called the Hockman Encyclopedia, which was written by Tom and Judy Dawson. You know, and what's cool is Tom and Judy live here in Toronto. Tom sadly just passed away, but Judy's still here. And we're having a playing card meetup at the Browser's Den on June 12th, if you're interested. And you want to learn more about playing cards. And we're going to talk about all this kind of stuff. And so that's like the forum is a really great place to start for free. Okay. But if you want to delve in even deeper, you can, for $25, join 52 Plus Joker and start getting the Card Culture is what it's called. And that's a monthly digital magazine that talks about all the different decks that are coming out and the antiques and the vintage and all types of stuff. And then it's got a quarterly printed magazine that's more antique and vintage than modern. And
it's $25.
$25 US.
A year, a month?
A year.
Not bad at all.
And you get, like I say, 12 digital issues, 4 printed issues that are not the same. And there's also some neat amenities, like if you join the club, you can have some of your cards evaluated. And it's a soft evaluation, right? Like we're not going to tell you. We'll tell you how much it might approximately be worth. but don't go on eBay and say like these guys said it was worth this. Right. So it's not that that kind.
Give you a ballpark.
Yeah.
And my other question, just I guess you don't have to share it if you don't want to, but just because I know you have a very large collection, you probably don't actually know how many decks you physically own.
A lot, yeah.
If you could ballpark it and talk about storage and things like that, because I know that like in your situation, it's a little bit over the top. So I think it's an interesting thing for people.
Well, just
to
the 605s alone were at 10,000. Okay. So that's not any of the decks that I've collected yet.
Right, those are your own cards.
But those are all in storage, or
No, I've sold.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I'm saying at one point,
right.
we're talking. I've had 10,000, and those are just my own.
Just because I'm trying to think about it, how much space does 10,000 decks take up?
It's 2 pallets.
Okay.
It's not a lot, but it's a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, it's enough.
Yeah.
I have different storage. I keep stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that I have here is the stuff that I've collected while I've lived here. But I also have a storage unit where a lot of the things that I own from the United States are still there because I can't bring them across because I'm not actually a resident of Canada yet. I'm still trying. I'm working hard. Very soon. And when that happens, then I can bring my stuff across. So stuff is here. Stuff is in that storage unit in Buffalo, which is right across the border. And because the moment they say go, I'm going. And then I also, my sister does a lot of my fulfillment for my business. So a lot of things that I'll purchase, let's say online, if I buy some stuff on eBay or if I make a deal with someone, I'll have it shipped there. So I have a lot of storage there. So you might
not even see the cards that
you're buying. I probably have not.
You felt them once, and you're like, give me.
No, there's a whole bunch that I've actually never even touched. That I know I have, that I've seen pictures of, that my sister will take photos of when they come in, but I haven't seen them yet. I'll eventually see them. She'll send them up to me one by one, slowly.
What's the most ridiculous purchase? What was the one time you're like, okay, what am I doing here? This is
the splurge of.
I've had a few of those.
If you don't mind, again, I know it's a kind of.
I won't tell you the price, but I will tell you that it was for a deck of Andrew Doherty cards. And Andrew Doherty...
A single deck.
A single deck.
Okay.
Andrew Doherty was the guy that created Tally Hos. So if you look at a box of Tally Hos, it says A. Doherty on that.
Okay.
That stands for Andrew Doherty. And he was actually a pretty badass dude. The more I learn about him, the more I go, man, this guy was awesome. Because he was a true businessman, real marketer. Really, he understood that people wanted the cards to slide better. So I'm going to create the linoid finish to make it slide better. And he was an innovator, man. He knew what he was doing. And so he put out a bunch of different kinds of cards. And they're beautiful. Man, they are amazing. And some of his decks are crazy expensive.
I mean,
and
is there some ballpark of what one of maybe not yours, but what?
What's the most expensive deck you've seen go online? Let's say
for his
of his
or in general. I think it's interesting.
Like the illuminated for him, his illuminated decks are crazy expensive. They're in the thousands. But I've seen in a mint condition illuminated, which if you can find.
And what year, are these still in production?
No.
What year did this all go?
That was like a triplicate. Was probably.
Again, ballpark.
I don't know an exact date. I'd have to email you, but
all right.
Let's say turn of the century, 18 something.
Okay, wow.
So you're getting a very.
Oh yeah, this is a beautiful piece of ephemera. Yeah. These things were not supposed to last this long, right? This is paper from 1880, But I've seen at the playing card convention, we have auctions at the playing card convention, and I've seen decks go for 6,000, 8,000. Wow. There are cards that are worth upwards of 10 to 20. There's some really amazing decks.
It's history, right?
Yeah. Having seen your collection, it's easy to see why. You were giving us an example of a pack of cards which had a stamp on it, still from the time when cards were being taxed, as in the way that they kept track of sort of everything being taxed, but in a specific time period where they didn't tax people at the war, the armed forces, for it. So there's a very specific seal that are only on who knows how many that was in this very specific time period. So it's easy to see why something could run up to be incredibly expensive, given falling in specific time periods with specific runs, specific types of cards, and that.
Sure, just like baseball cards, just like comic books.
Any other?
I don't think any
collect-
cards get upwards of millions of dollars like comic books or baseball cards do.
Mm-hmm.
But there are map decks like they get more expensive when you get into like European cards because they're older, right? But there are cards that were held by a king. This is what the king learned when he was a kid. There's only one of those, and it was hand painted in gold.
Right.
And so you have those things still floating around that are very impressive. That's out of my league. I certainly can't afford those things.
Yeah.
I like looking at them and reading about them, but I don't know if I'll ever own any of that.
Yeah, so I guess for my final thoughts and my final sort of inspirations about this, you just sort of, to be honest, though I did want to ask those questions earlier, I didn't have closing thoughts so I was biding time. But your explanation of how the tally-ho finish sort of came to be, I think, is very interesting. So I'd like to sort of learn the history of specific magicians and the cards they used and their performance styles and how they're related.
Sure.
Because that'd be
I don't know if anyone's undertaken that kind of study, but that's an interesting thought. I bet you what you'll find is a lot of it has to do with where they live, right? Because cards were distributed based on regions. So tally-hos were very popular with people in New York because that's where those cards were distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Like tally-hos were not popular in Texas because they really weren't distributed. Now with the internet, now with distribution the way it is, Amazon and whatnot, things have changed. But back then, why did Marlowe play with Arco? Well, because Arco was made in Chicago, and that's where Marlowe was from. Yeah. So I bet you you'll see that happen with that kind of study. But it's interesting. It's a very interesting study. It's why do these guys use these cards? I noticed I did for a while start trying to look at what decks were being used in old books. Like Dunninger used to use old E.E. Fairchild decks, which is a name that probably no one will recognize. But he was using them, and maybe it was because he had a friend, or maybe it's because his local bodega sold E.E. Fairchild. Who knows? But probably a lot of it had to do with the way that things were distributed back then.
So, Lee, do you have any final closing thoughts on either this conversation, maybe if something new was brought up, or just
to cover,
anything that you think is...
okay, so I do. My closing thoughts are playing cards are special. And they, like I said, we're in a golden age of playing cards. And so you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You can stick with the red and blue bikes, and I'm not going to try to, make you change your mind. But there is no denying that there is something special happening. And, you can watch it happen, or you can be a part of it and go buy some of these decks and support some of these Kickstarter artists. And
I've been moved already to be a part of it because
it's very exciting. It is exciting.
Pre this interview, I was very not anti playing card collection, but anti for myself. Like it wasn't something I have an interest in. But now this is
my playing card collection up until now is sort of like a drawer with cards that I'm like.
Well, that's how it starts.
These are cards that I didn't really use because I used my bikes.
That's
but these are cards that landed in my lap either because I bought them or because they were given to me or
I think
something.
I'm gonna start buying two.
Yes.
Like that's a good just like one just to use.
Hold one. That's a very common theme.
Yeah.
That's a very common theme in the magic world and the cardistry world and the collecting world is buy two.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Play with one and keep one.
So
and shelve one.
If someone is looking to look you up online, maybe if they're interested in information about you, your magic. I mean, I know we already name dropped Asher Twist, but that's because it had a place in our life.
Plug.
Or playing cards. Where can someone find you, and where can someone get into this stuff?
It's very difficult. You ready? LeeAsher.com. You can actually even just Google Lee Asher. You don't even have to spell it right, and Google will tell you.
You just go Asher.
That's right.
Might come.
That's right. That's right. Just LeeAsher.com. And I'll be very happy to answer any questions you have about magic, playing cards.
He's not kidding. He's not kidding. When I was young, I was amazed that I got email responses.
Yeah. And pretty quickly too. Like I don't like things in my inbox. I'm weird like that. So I try to knock them out. But yeah, if you have any questions about that, I'm very happy to answer you and talk to you about things that I love, right? Why wouldn't I want to talk about that?
Well, that's exactly why we're doing this podcast. Yes. So
welcome to our world.
Welcome to this is it. This share the love.
So
space.
Thank you so much. This was an awesome and very enlightening both interview and, day and just opportunity to look through some of this amazing stuff, some of these incredible pieces of history and
eat some amazing food,
snapshots, get some amazing dinner and learn a ton and get an opportunity to join in the fun that you are having of bridging the world of playing cards between the young and the new and the magicians and the interested in
this culminating of history.
I put the Lee in liaison.
There you go. Put the Lee in liaison. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you so much, Lee, for the awesome day.
My pleasure.
And
guys.
we will see the rest of you
opportunity.
on the next episode of Discourse in Magic.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Wow, what a blast that was to record. We had so much fun recording with Lee at his house. It was a very, very interesting interview for us. I learned a lot about playing cards. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, leave a comment. Tell us what are your favorite decks? What makes a deck good to you? What did you learn about the history? What did you find most interesting? And how has these new innovations in the cards helped your performance? And if you leave a comment, it also enters you in our contest for this month, where you can win an amazing prize, which is...
Yeah, so it is a copy of Series of Unfortunate Effects, which is a DVD movie magic combination made by Chris Mayhew and Ben Train, and it's absolutely amazing, and actually Lee Asher has a very fun spot in it. And so if you comment anywhere on the website, on this episode, on another episode, on an article, anything, something relevant, and you subscribe to our newsletter,
that's
then
very
you will
important. Must subscribe.
Yeah, you got to remember to subscribe so that we have your email. Then you will be entered in a contest to win this, and we're giving away 4 of them. And right now, there are less than 10 comments in June on the website. So you have a big opportunity to win a free DVD right now. But go right now and comment right now at this moment, unless you are driving a car, in which case, don't. Yeah, so there you go. Leave a comment somewhere, excited on this episode, another episode, anything you like. And other than that, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Discourse in Magic, and we will see you all next time.